The human's hands were tied behind his back, blood dried on his shirt, and eyes fixed on the tall alien woman before him. She stood on a raised platform made of silver stone, her long dark robe flowing like liquid shadow. Her golden crown sparkled under the twin suns. Her face looked calm, but her eyes were sharp with hate. "You are not special," she said with a voice full of pride. "You are a mistake from a weak world." Humans were never meant to stand beside the Viren Empire. The guards around him laughed, their sharp teeth flashing. They were twice his size, with blue skin and armored bodies. But he didn't flinch. He stood still. His silence cut deeper than any insult. Her smile faded. Something about him made her uneasy. He was beaten, tied, outnumbered, and yet he looked at her like he wasn't the one who had lost. 3 weeks earlier, no one in the galaxy even knew his name. Earth had just joined the United Galactic Union. It was a big moment. Ambassadors from every major empire visited the Earth Embassy ship. That's where he worked, just a tech support guy, fixing comms panels and running cables. Nothing special. He wasn't a soldier. He didn't wear a uniform. But he was curious. And on that quiet afternoon, he wandered into a sealed hallway looking for a faulty terminal. That's when everything changed. The explosion ripped through the ship like thunder. Red lights flashed. The metal floor shook. Screams echoed down the hall. He ducked as a fireball passed just inches above his head. Then came silence. When he opened his eyes, the walls were blackened, and most of the staff were gone, burned, crushed. He wasn't supposed to survive. He shouldn't have been there at all. But he got up, coughing through smoke, and started pulling others from the wreckage. He saved 4 lives that day, not because it was his job, just because it was right. But someone had set that bomb. And it wasn't just an accident. The Viren Empire had planned it to scare Earth. They saw humans as pests, noisy, short-lived, too bold. They wanted Earth out of the Union. That blast was just the beginning. Earth responded with peace. They sent messages, asked for talks, but the Viren mocked them. They sent images of the dead back to Earth, laughing as if it were a joke. The Union did nothing. They were afraid of war. The Viren were too powerful, too rich, and their princess was known for her cruelty. Her name was Vilshar. Born of blood, trained in battle, proud of her race. She had never lost a fight. Until now. Because when Earth finally sent someone to talk, they didn't send a general. They didn't send a diplomat. They sent the man who pulled bodies from the burning ship. The same man she now held prisoner. She didn't know why Earth had chosen him. No rank, no armor. Just quiet eyes and a strange calm. But the moment she slapped him across the face in front of the court, the room fell silent. He didn't cry out. He didn't beg. He smiled. "That was your first mistake," he said quietly. It was the first time anyone had spoken back to her in years. The guards reached for their weapons, but he didn't move. He just looked at her like he already knew what would happen next, and somewhere deep inside her, a flicker of fear began. He wasn't just a human. He was something else. Something she couldn't control. The Viren Empire had expected humans to roll over. But they didn't realize what Earth really was. A world of storms. A world of struggle. A world that made survivors, not slaves. And this man, this quiet man from a small blue planet, was about to show her that no crown, no army, no empire could crush a human who had already survived fire. Not with words, not with weapons, but with something stronger, willpower, and she had just woken it up. Asterisk. The guards dragged him through the stone halls of the royal stronghold, their claws tight on his arms as his boots scraped the ground. His name was Daniel Reyes. No medals. No noble blood. Just a repairman from Earth who had survived a bombing and dared to speak against a royal tyrant. He wasn't afraid. Not because he was brave, but because he had nothing left to lose. They threw him into a cold cell. its walls humming with energy barriers. One guard spit near his feet, then walked off with a sneer. The door hissed shut behind him. Daniel sat quietly. No yelling. No struggle. He looked at the glowing barrier and counted its pulse rhythm. 6 seconds per cycle. Weak spot near the bottom left panel. He wasn't a soldier, but he'd spent a decade fixing ship systems. And this prison was built with the same tech, while Bavarian watched him from their cameras, thinking he was broken. He was counting, learning, preparing. The princess sat in her private chamber, pacing across the dark marble floor. She couldn't stop thinking about him. His words kept repeating in her mind like a slow poison. That was your first mistake. She had heard begging, threats, even curses, but never that kind of calm defiance. It wasn't anger. It wasn't madness. It was belief. He believed something she didn't understand, and that scared her. She called her council. Alien nobles with long robes and tired eyes. They tried to tell her the usual lies, that humans were weak, that Earth was foolish, that Daniel would break soon. But one old voice among them dared to say something different. You've mistaken silence for fear, Your Highness. That man didn't survive the bombing by luck. He's not here to speak. He's here to change something, she dismissed. The old noble and waved her hand. No human can threaten me. He will kneel like the rest. But as night fell, she ordered guards to double their rounds. Even she didn't trust her words completely in the prison cell. Daniel used a bent metal shard from his boot buckle to short the first layer of the barrier. Sparks jumped. He winced but kept working. It wasn't time to escape yet, just time to see if escape was possible. 2 guards checked on him hours later. He was sitting still, pretending to sleep. They didn't notice the smell of burnt wire under the wall stone. Daniel knew how to wait. He'd waited before, when his father died, when his home was flooded back on Earth, when the Union ignored the bombing of their embassy. Waiting wasn't weakness. It was strategy. The next day, the princess ordered him brought before her again. This time there was no crowd, just the 2 of them in a high room filled with floating light orbs. She stared at him, no chains now. She wanted to see how he stood without them. You are nothing, she said again. Softer this time. He looked around the room, then at her eyes. You keep saying that, yet here I am. Still not kneeling, her fingers curled. No one had dared talk like that since her father died. But she couldn't stop herself from asking, why aren't you afraid? Because I already lived through worse, he said. She wanted to laugh, but she couldn't. He meant it. There was no bluff. And something in her chest twisted, not anger, but something older. Something almost like shame. Daniel turned and walked to the side of the chamber, looking out the glass wall that showed the city below. You rule this world with fear. But fear is a blade with 2 edges. Cut enough people, and one day, one learns how to stop bleeding. You think Earth can fight us? She asked. He shook his head. I think Earth doesn't need to. You've already lost. You just haven't realized it yet. She stepped closer. Why do you talk like you've won? Because you're listening, he said without turning. That night, she couldn't sleep. She told herself it was the heat, the noise of the wind, the pressure of duty. But she knew the truth. The human had infected her mind with doubt. Across the palace, Daniel sat in his cell, counting again. 6 seconds per pulse. The wire was ready. One more day, maybe 2, and he'd walk out. Not with an army, not with fire, but with something no one expected from a prisoner, choice. And once he walked free, everything on this world would change. Daniel sat on the cold stone floor with his back against the wall, listening to the distant hum of the force barrier. His fingers moved slowly over the wire he had hidden inside his boot. The prison cameras watched him from above, but he knew their limits. They were old models, blind from low angles and weak in the corners. He had mapped every pulse, every sound, every guard's steps. Soon he would act, But not yet. Timing was everything. In the Grand Hall, Princess Velshar stood before her war council. The Union had sent a message, one that surprised her. Earth had refused to apologize for Daniel's actions. Instead, they requested a public trial. The council shouted in anger. A trial was beneath them. Earth was a low-class world with barely any power. Letting them speak before the Empire would be an insult. But Velshar listened quietly. Her thoughts were not on Earth's pride. They were on the human prisoner's eyes, the way he looked at her with no fear, no need for weapons. Just certainty. Agree to the trial, she said at last. The room fell silent. Her top general leaned forward. You're giving them a stage? I'm giving them a spotlight, she said. Let him speak. Let him fall before all eyes. But part of her wasn't sure he would fall. In the prison cell, Daniel fixed the wire into the panel's seam. One click, one spark, and the barrier would collapse for 5 seconds. Long enough to vanish. But he didn't activate it. He waited. He needed her to see something first. When the guards came to take him to the trial, he went without struggle. His eyes scanned the hallways, counting guards, exits, hidden vents. All recorded in his mind. The trial chamber was vast. Thousands of aliens gathered, their eyes glowing in the dark. Noble houses, traders, mercenaries, and Union observers. Floating screens lit up the walls. Princess Velshar stood tall on her throne, dressed in deep red armor. She raised her hand, and silence spread like a wave. You are charged with insulting the royal name, trespassing, and spreading Earth's lies, she said. Daniel looked around the chamber. So many eyes. So many watching for him to break. He stepped forward, shoulders relaxed. Are you ready to speak? She asked. No, he said. A soft gasp spread through the crowd. I'm not here to speak, he continued. I'm here to ask one question. Just one for everyone watching. Velshar narrowed her eyes. What question? He turned to the crowd. If Earth is so weak, so foolish, then why am I still standing? Why is your princess so afraid to kill me? The crowd murmured. Velshar's face turned hard. I allowed you to live out of mercy, she said. No, Daniel said calmly. You let me live because deep down, you wanted to hear what I had to say. You wanted to know why your empire, for all its strength, still fears the unknown. He stepped forward, one slow step at a time. You rule with fear. Use cruelty like its strength. But Earth learned something different. We learned that fire can be a tool. That pain makes us tougher. That survival means standing even when we're broken. Velshar rose from her throne, voice sharp. Enough. But the crowd was no longer quiet. The Viren nobles shifted in their seats. Some looked at her, not with pride but doubt. Daniel stopped at the center of the room. You think I'm here alone. But I'm not. Every voice Earth lost in that bombing. Every name you laughed at. They are standing with me now. Then without warning, he dropped something from his sleeve. A small device clicked against the floor, and every floating screen turned blue. Velshar's eyes widened. What is this? The screens showed images. Pictures from the bombing. Evidence of the Vireans' hidden orders. Messages pulled from secure servers. Proof of the Empire's attack on Earth's embassy. The hall erupted. Voices screamed. Some nobles stood. Others backed away from the princess's throne. Daniel didn't smile. He just looked at her one last time. You thought I was here to beg, he said. But I came to show you something else. She drew. Her blade in rage, but he was already gone. He pressed the button hidden in his boot. The prison gate failsafe activated in the palace too. Hidden doors opened. And while the crowd burned in shock, he vanished into the tunnels below. The Viren Empire had just seen its first truth in decades, and they weren't ready for what would come next. Panic spread through the royal chamber like fire in dry grass. Nobles ran for the exits. Screens flashed with the leaked messages, proof that Princess Velshar had ordered the embassy bombing. The silence that once protected her was broken. She stood alone at the center, her blade still in hand, watching the empty space where the human had stood. Daniel Reyes was gone. The palace guards rushed through the halls, searching every corridor and chamber. They sealed gates, scanned vents, and locked the city ports. But they were too late. He had already planned everything. Beneath the palace, deep tunnels built centuries ago led to the outer districts. Daniel ran through them, feet steady, heart calm. He had stolen no weapons. He didn't need any. His weapon was truth. Above him, the news spread fast. Union observers sent the recordings across the stars. On Earth, billions watched the speech in silence. On Viren worlds, citizens whispered about the human who stood against the crown and made her tremble. But not everyone was pleased. General Tharek, Velshar's most trusted enforcer, stormed into the war chamber. He wore black armor marked with blood-red stripes. His face was like stone, but his voice boiled with rage. "You let him walk into your court, spread poison, and escape?" he growled. Velshar turned sharply. "He made me look like a fool," she said. "He made you look weak." Tharek snapped. "And now our enemies smell blood." She walked to the edge of the chamber window, watching smoke rise from distant towers. Protests had begun. Some were already tearing down her banners. "I will find him myself," she said. Tharek stepped forward. "You? No, you are royalty. Let me send hunters. Let me burn the tunnels. Let me erase him before he speaks again." But she shook her head. "If I hide behind others, I prove his words. If I kneel to fear, I lose everything. No, I will bring him back myself." General Tharek stared at her for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "Then wear this," he said, handing her a black combat belt. She clipped it around her waist without hesitation. Far below, Daniel stopped near an old metal gate. His hands were shaking slightly now, but not from fear. From memory, this was the same kind of air duct he'd used when escaping the embassy fire. Back then, everything was smoke and screaming. Now, it was quiet. But the danger was greater. Didn't know how many believed his words. He didn't know if he had allies. But he knew one thing: the world was watching. He opened the gate and stepped into the lower district, a part of the city where the poor lived and the royal guards rarely came. Lights flickered. Dust filled the air. But whispers were already spreading. "You're the human, aren't you?" said a young Viren girl as she stood by a broken food stand. Daniel paused. "Do I look like trouble?" The girl smiled. "You look free." That night, he hid in a forgotten temple ruin beneath the streets. But he didn't sleep. Instead, he activated a tiny Earth-made beacon from his shoe. A blue light blinked once. Then again, miles above in Earth's closest outpost ship. The signal was received. Inside the ship, Commander Lin stared at the screen. "We've got him," she said. The Earth fleet moved fast. Silent, precise. Not for war, but for extraction. Earth wasn't looking to destroy the Empire. They were there to finish what Daniel started. Change. Back in the palace, Velshar removed her crown and handed it to her second-in-command. "If I don't return, burn it," she said quietly. The guard froze. "Your Highness, I need to know," she interrupted. Was he right about me? About us? She stepped onto a small stealth craft and flew into the night alone. She didn't bring guards, didn't bring a flag. Just her armor, her blade, and questions she couldn't silence anymore. As her ship touched down near the old ruins, she scanned for life signs. One. She stepped inside, eyes sharp, boots silent. Then she saw him, sitting near a broken pillar with a calm look on his face. "You didn't run far," she said. Daniel stood slowly. "Didn't need to. You were always going to come. Are you here to surrender?" She asked. "No," he said. "I'm here to ask you one last question." She raised a brow. "What now?" He stepped closer. Do you still believe power comes from making others kneel? She didn't answer, because deep inside, something had already changed. The wind blew through the broken temple walls, lifting dust into the air as the human and the alien princess stood. Just steps apart, neither moved. Daniel watched her closely. Her black armor shimmered with faint red lights, and her blade was strapped. To her back, she had come alone, but she didn't look weak. She looked like someone trying to understand something new. Why didn't you run? She asked again. Because I wanted to see if you had the courage to come here without your throne. He replied. Velshar looked around. No guards, no cameras. Just two people on opposite sides of a galaxy, standing in the ruins of something. Older than both their worlds, she had lived her whole life being feared. Taught to lead with strength. But now, for the first time, she was face to face with someone who didn't fear her at all. You think your words can change an empire? She asked. No, Daniel said. I think your choices can. She studied his face. He looked tired, like someone who had seen too much in a short time. But there was something else, something that unsettled her more than anger or pride. He looked like he cared. She turned her back to him, walked to the edge of the temple, and looked out at the flickering lights of the lower city. When I was young, they told me a Viren princess must never bow, never question, never doubt, she said. They taught me to crush problems before they grew. That's how I became ruler. And now? Daniel asked. She clenched her fists. Now I wonder if I've only built a cage and called it a throne. Daniel didn't smile. He knew this wasn't victory. Not yet. This was something more rare, honesty. You started a war, he said quietly. But you can end it too, Velshar. Turned slowly. You think peace will make Earth safe? No, he said. But peace might make it matter. A low hum echoed outside. Her ship had been found. Earth's extraction team had landed quietly, hidden behind the far ridge. Commander Lin stood at a distance, watching through magnifiers. She gave no signal. She wanted to see how this played out. Inside the ruin, Velshar stepped forward. You're asking me to stand down. To admit to the galaxy I was wrong. Do you understand what that means? Daniel nodded. It means you'll be stronger than any Viren ruler before you. It means your people might finally believe in something more than fear. Velshar's hand touched the blade on her back. She drew it slowly, not to threaten, but to offer it. She held it out to him, hilt first. A sign of respect in Viren culture. A sign of surrender. Daniel took the blade gently, then placed it down between them. No one needs to kneel, he said. Not you. Not me. We just need to walk out of here as equals. She nodded once, then stepped beside him. Outside, Commander. Lin gave the signal. Her team moved in fast but without weapons raised. They didn't expect this. Two figures walking side by side out of the shadows. Velshar looked at the human soldiers. Her heart beat fast. She had never felt so exposed. So judged, but no one attacked. No one mocked her. They just watched with quiet surprise. Daniel turned to her. Are you ready for what comes next? She took a breath. No, but I'll face it anyway. Later that night, the Royal Broadcast Tower was activated. Across Viren territory, every screen lit up with her image. She stood in full armor, crown beside her, not on her head. I ordered the attack on the Earth Embassy, she said clearly. And I was wrong. I let fear rule me. But that ends now. Peace talks will begin immediately. And Earth will have a place in this galaxy, not as servants, but as equals. The galaxy froze, some cheered, others screamed. But everyone watched. As history changed with one message, Daniel stood beside her, saying nothing. His presence was enough, and in that moment, the empire began to break, and something better started to grow in its place. But not everyone welcomed change. In the dark edge of the system, General Tharik stood in a hidden chamber, watching the broadcast with cold eyes. She's gone soft, he said. And now it's my turn to lead. He turned to a shadowy figure beside him. Begin the uprising and find the human. If he lives, the Empire dies. The war wasn't over yet. The skies above the Viren capital turned red as explosions shook the towers. General Tharek had struck without warning. His loyal soldiers, wearing stolen royal armor, attacked the palace and communication towers. He called it a restoration, but it was rebellion. Across the city, people screamed. Fires spread, lights flickered. The message of peace had barely settled before it was drowned in smoke and fear again. Inside the main palace bunker, Daniel stood beside Princess Velshar. Dust fell from the ceiling as the blasts grew louder. We need to evacuate, said Commander Lin through the comms. Our dropship is ready. You both have 10 minutes before this place becomes rubble. But Velshar didn't move. If I run now, I lose everything, she said. He wins. The old way wins. Daniel stepped in front of her. This isn't about pride anymore. This is survival. You can't lead a new empire if you're dead. She clenched her jaw. I can't keep asking you to protect me. You've already done more than any soldier I've known. I'm not here to protect you, Daniel said. I'm here to finish what we started. Together, the two of them moved through the smoke-filled halls, guarded by a few loyal officers. They didn't head for the ship, not yet. Instead, they made for the ancient command tower deep beneath the palace. There, a hidden system lay buried. Old tech from before the Empire's rise. A last defense built by her ancestors and long forgotten. If we can reach the core relay, Velshar said, I can send a direct message to all systems, uncut, unfiltered. Let them hear my voice one last time. As they reached the chamber, two of Tharek's soldiers dropped from the ceiling vents. Blasters raised. Eyes cold, Velshar moved without fear, drawing the short blade she once offered to Daniel. She fought with sharp, trained strikes, graceful and fierce. Daniel grabbed a pipe from the wall and blocked the other's attack, swinging wide and fast. Together, they dropped the attackers in seconds. Blood on the floor, smoke in the air. But neither paused. At the relay console, Velshar entered her code. The screen lit up with a single prompt. Broadcast all CHA Nanil. She looked at Daniel one last time. If this doesn't work. It will, he said. Because the galaxy is ready to follow someone who learns from failure, not hides behind lies. She nodded, then pressed the key. Her voice went live across every world in her empire. This is Velshar of Viren. I will not be your queen. It means standing over ash. I will not return to the old ways. If you follow Tharek, then follow him into ruin. But if you believe in peace, then stand now, rise. Together. Not under me, but beside me. The screen went black. Outside, rebel ships paused. Troops hesitated. Some began lowering weapons. Others shouted. But doubt had been planted. That was all they needed. Back in the relay chamber, the doors burst open. General Tharek stood there with his elite guards. He looked at Velshar with fury and disgust. You gave away our strength, he said. For what? For a human's words? Daniel stepped forward. No, for her own. She didn't kneel to me. She rose on her own terms. And now it's you who look small. Tharek snarled and raised his weapon, but Velshar moved first, faster than anyone expected. She struck with her blade, knocking the weapon aside, then drove the hilt into his chest with a sharp crack. Tharek fell, gasping, his guards stunned. Daniel held out his hand. It's over. Call them off. The guards looked at Velshar. And, for the first time, they saw not a queen or a weapon, but a leader who had faced death and chose truth. They lowered their arms. Hours later, the fires in the city were out. The rebel flags were torn down. Velshar stood in the main plaza, her crown held in both hands. I will rule, but never alone again, she said. The time of fear is finished. This empire will rise through unity, not chains. The crowd roared. Behind her, Daniel stood quietly. He didn't wave. He didn't speak. But everyone knew his name now. When the Union offered him a medal, he refused. When Earth asked him to return as a hero, he sent a message back. I didn't go to be a hero. I went to remind the galaxy what humans really are. People who never stay down. People who walk into fire not for glory, but for others. He remained on Viren not as a ruler, not as a soldier, but as something far more powerful. A friend to a once lost queen who chose to change, and together, they helped build something new from the ashes of war. Not a throne, a future.